Good morning. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Fire Commissioners. The date is Tuesday, January 16th, and it's about 9 a.m. Roll call.
Let the record reflect Commissioners Ibarra, Glazier, Hada, Ninberg, Woods Gray are present, and we have a quorum. Madam President.
Thank you. Flag salute and moment of silence.
Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of past and present members of the Los Angeles Fire Department who devoted their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
Good morning. So we begin, as always, with Commissioner comments.
Okay, good morning and Happy New Year to everyone, since this is our first meeting of the new year. There were a number of things that happened during the time between the last meeting. We all attended many of us attended the Fire Foundation's reception honoring Karen Wagner, and it was very nice, and we even got little goodie bags. That was cute. So, and we appreciate the service of Karen. We can never say that enough. Then I attended the next day the funeral for Captain Stewart, and to his family I offer my condolences again, because but it was a very nice service and well attended, and the fire department seemed to really do their part and did it up in a very big way. It was very very nice service. And to have his family, we don't think that we bury our children, but his mother was there, and so it's kind of like very touching funeral. Then we had graduation, and I was very impressed because I said most of my goals are almost being met, Chief.
Most of them?
Yes. We had an African American who was the highest scorer. Mm-hmm. Then we had a female who made the leader of the class and was the highest overall score. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I'm almost about to shout. But because of the Chief, we are doing very well, and we thank you and appreciate your leadership. Then I attended the California Legislative Black Caucus in Sacramento for 3 days, where I was honored and received an award as an unsung hero. And that was a very special half of a week there, because we were honoring Martin Luther King at the same time. So it was special to, they had a breakfast at which they gave us plaques, and Donna Brazile was our speaker. So that was really fabulous. She did a great job of talking about Dr. Martin Luther King. And then on Friday, we went to the floor of the Assembly, where we were presented with resolutions again and presented to the whole Assembly. So that was a fabulous time for me. And then we had the parade on Monday. Oh, my. That was really great, too. And we were able to ride with the Chief, Chief Rideout, and Chief Hogan, and Dr. Hara. And, of course, we thank Cody for his wonderful driving experiences, and he always takes good care of us in the bandwagon. So that makes the parade worth going to, only because the first time I went with Chief Flegel on a parade, Chinese New Year's parade, we climbed on top of the ladder truck, but that was the only time I could ever do that, never do that again. So we thank Cody for driving the bandwagon so that I'm able to actually participate in the parades, which I enjoy tremendously. And I was very proud to have us represented in the Martin Luther King parade, because it was the largest parade in this country for honoring Dr. Martin Luther King. And so we were a part of that. And everybody loved us, didn't they, Chief? Mm-hmm.
That's right.
They all said, thank you, thank you. You worked so hard. I mean, they were saying that was all along the whole parade route. And they said it so many times. It was wonderful, I thought. So we need to share that with our fire department, because you need to know that the citizens of Los Angeles truly appreciate you. And I think, Chief, this is a time for the bond.
Yes, ma'am. We're working on it.
Like Commissioner Woods Gray, I also attended the foundation's event honoring Karen, and that was a great event, I thought. And then I also attended the graduation and was happy to see that Carolyn Carpenter was honored as the top recruit in that class, and likewise I participated in the Kingdom Day parade with Commissioner Woods Gray, and it really was interesting. Everyone seemed to be very appreciative of the fire department, and that all along the parade route, everyone was thanking us. So I thought that was a great parade.
Hi, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Thanks. I just wanted to also recognize that we had first time in LAFD history a female top recruit, Carolyn Carpenter. It's a big deal, and also the diverse candidates, the African American who achieved the highest in the test as well, and that's a testament to the focus of diversity and reaching out to marginalized groups, and it's fantastic, and I just want to commend your leadership on that as well.
Thank you.
And that's it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
So, ditto on all the graduation comments. I was also there. It was great to see it. It was a great event. I also thank you to Fire Station 23s for hosting me for dinner, and they even got a call while I was there.
Keep going. You did it. Fun.
Good.
So now we have report of the fire chief.
Thank you, Madam President. On December 19th, I was invited to go to the UCLA men's basketball game in recognition of the great work our firefighters did at the Screwball Fire. So I went. I know the athletic director from UCLA. We went to high school together. So out of loyalty to our friendship and the opportunity to recognize our people, I wanted to go. And before the game, I talked to the alumni group that goes and supports UCLA athletics. And I can't tell you, I must have had 5 to 6 people come up to me in tears. They were so grateful our people had saved their homes or minimized the damage. They had never seen anything like that, and they wanted me to know that they were extremely appreciative, which we saw during that parade yesterday. The parade, I'll jump to that real quick. There was a large crowd, probably the largest crowd than I had ever seen. I'd been in 4 of these, and I think that was a response to the national dialogue coming from Washington. But the specific remarks about our fire department all along the parade were, thank you, I love you, the fire department, all comments like that. I think that's specific to the fact that we've been in the news a lot lately with brush fires, with mudslides, with the flu epidemic. And that, to me, is another way to confirm our people are doing great work. And we're an all-risk life safety provider, and we deal with all those three things I mentioned. So it was not surprising. It felt nice, and we need to communicate the public's appreciation to our members, and we'll put something out on the portal message to that effect. On December 20th, we had a dedication ceremony for the Michael P. Reddy Training Room in the Fire Prevention Bureau. Inspector Reddy passed away over a year ago now. He lost a long battle with cancer, and the members of the Fire Prevention Bureau stepped up on their own initiative and created this training room and put a picture of Mike and the badge artwork, and it was outstanding. And it's another way that we can show the Reddy family that we're not going to forget. So we're very appreciative of that. December 21st, I did attend the memorial services for Keith Stewart. Keith was a probationary firefighter for me when I was a captain at 94s many, many years ago. Outstanding. I thought he would go far then, and he passed away as a captain too, and probably would have gone much further. It was just a tremendous tragedy that he died. He died in an off-duty motorcycle accident. But I was proud that our department represented, and thank you, Commissioner Woodsgrave, for attending. And I think we lived up to our reputation of being a second family, and that was one example of that. December 22nd, we have the annual supply and maintenance holiday breakfast inspection party at the shops. It is by far the nicest, largest event in terms of attendees on the fire department. People come from several years back that used to work at the shops, but they want to continue just to visit and catch up with their former coworkers. And it's also a time for us to conduct an inspection. We walk throughout the entire facility, and the members of our department that work at the shops are extremely proud to show us what they've been working on and the condition of the current work environment in terms of the facilities. And I've never seen the shops look better than I did at that event. January 4th was our graduation of Drill Tower 81. Very proud of that class, especially that Caroline Carpenter did finish number 1. I think that's symbolic. You know, we got media inquiries most significantly from Channel 7, and they wanted to do an interview with Caroline and myself on Monday, the following Monday from the Thursday graduation. And I thought about it. I really didn't want to impact her probationary time, but I thought this is a good opportunity to capitalize on the interest. So we went on Channel 7. She did a great job. We are reopening for filing on March 5th through June 29th. So I wanted to make sure that we got that message out, and she was a tremendous ambassador for our effort to recruit more females. And now we're going to try to leave her alone for a while so she can get some experience in the field. On January 5th, we had a press conference with the mayor at Fire Station 4. We announced the opening of the sober unit, which started activation mid-April. It got kind of lost in the attention to the brush fires, but the sober unit is really starting to gain traction. The metrics are very positive in terms of the people that we're seeing and the people we're transporting. Well over 98% of our patient transports are homeless. So that tells us that we are reaching the intended population. I heard some stories from the people assigned to that apparatus. It's a partnership. We supply a firefighter paramedic. LAHSA, the LA Housing Services Authority, it's a joint agency between the city and the county. They provide the nurse practitioner and a caseworker. So they have told me some stories, such as one person couldn't believe that they're really going to take him to this detox center. They're not going to take him to jail. And the person was in tears. And this person, it's a linkage to long-term housing and substance abuse treatment. So after some encouragement from our people, he was transported to the sober center. So I'm very motivated, and hopefully that unit, that pilot will lead to other pilots just like it. During that press conference, we also talked about our homeless encampment survey. It's an effort that we undertook after the Skirball fire, when we learned that the cause of that fire, or the location, started in a homeless encampment within the very high fire severity zone. So our survey, our windshield survey, should be completed today or tomorrow, and we're using our inspectors to clarify and validate who owns the property. And then we're going to notify the responsible property owner of the need for them to ask people to leave, or to let LAPD know if it's city property. If it's private property, they still, and the people aren't willing to leave voluntarily, they need to contact LAPD. But it's not as simple as that. There's also county property, there's Caltrans, there's Mountain Conservancy property. So that's why it's so important our inspectors validate who owns the property. And once that's clarified, notify the appropriate authorities for follow-up. After the follow-up notification, if it's a city property, LAHSA and LAPD and sanitation will go out together as a team and encourage the people there to voluntarily move on. And if they don't, they will be arrested for trespassing. It's as simple as that. It's a very high fire severity zone for a reason, and the reason was because was best exemplified during the Square Ball fire. The reason is because we could have big, large fires. And then on January 8th, we had the firefighter family orientation for Class 17-2, 48 members. And then when you add the additional reassigns, 11 more, it's for a total of 59. Of those 59, 7 are female. So that is targeted to start January 22nd. And lastly, we have a badge presentation ceremony this coming Thursday at Hotchkiss at 9 a.m. We're going to promote 38 people, and that's always a great event. Their promotions will be effective on Sunday, the 21st. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving on to verbal report by the department on significant incidents from December 19th through January 15th, 2018.
Good morning, Madam President, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas,
Morning.
Mr. Raffich, Isela. Alfred Poyer, Chief Deputy of Emergency Operations. Reporting on emergency activity. One of the things we've experienced over the past several months is the need to watch our weather really closely and augment our resources for wildland deployments, the Santa Ana wind conditions, and we did that very effectively over the past several months, and I've talked about how that is a team effort. We transitioned over the past several weeks, and one of the things the fire chief mentioned was the flu epidemic and some of the other influenza-like illnesses that we keep a close eye on, emergency room activity. And what we've been doing is augmenting, instead of firefighting resources, we've been augmenting BLS rescue ambulances in an effort to support the paramedic resources by taking the low acuity calls and putting them on the backs of the BLS resources as much as we can. And we'll see that out there again today. I wanted to mention that because the call volume and the ambulance transport volume has really gone up over the past few weeks, and we watch that very closely. In terms of emergency activity, we're all aware of the rain that we had a week ago yesterday on January 8th. We deployed an field incident management team under the command of Assistant Chief Corey Rose. Another example of how we take our administrative staff and they serve in other capacities, and we deployed a field incident management team out to the valley in unified command with the Los Angeles Police Department, the Department of Transportation, Public Works, and a multitude of other agencies in preparation for the storms, in preparation for what was potentially mud and debris flow here in the city as a result of our wildland fires. And we did experience some pretty significant mud flows in Latuna Canyon. But that team effort, the preparation, the mitigation efforts proved very, very effective. And although we had some damage, we didn't have any significant injuries. I want to acknowledge Mark Davis and his team and the support that we get from the Administrative Services Bureau, the logistics for these types of incidents, feeding all these staff, the economics surrounding emergency overtime, tracking those overtime hours for reimbursement from the state and from the federals requires a tremendous amount of work. And he's really a great member of our team, and his staff, tremendous support to emergency operations during those activities. And that really leads us up to the thing that dwarfed all of that is what happened in Montecito and what happened in Santa Barbara County. Very, very tragic events. And I just want to acknowledge that as part of the State Master Mutual Aid Program, we sent a number of resources up to Montecito. We sent what's called an Alpha Strike Team, a Type 1 strike team of engines that you normally see around the city, along with 22 members up to Montecito to provide fire protection. They lost water in a lot of areas, and to assist with search and rescue efforts. We sent a number of overhead staff, the Cal Fire Incident Management Team that was brought in to manage that incident, has several members of the LAFD staff that team. We sent our Charlie Strike Team, which is the Type 3 four-wheel drive engines that you see that we operate in conjunction with OES as part of the state. They're four-wheel drive. And then we sent a 29-member regional USAR task force up there as well. So in all, we had approximately 85 members of the LAFD up there working as part of that search and rescue efforts and the recovery efforts. A lot of people that work in other functions and aspects of this organization. Margaret Stewart, who's normally a public service officer, is up there as a K-9 handler. We have Jeff Dapper, who's normally a battalion chief in our disaster response section as part of the CAL FIRE IMT, and a number of other individuals as well. I'm just pointing out a couple of examples. And so that Type 1 strike team came back yesterday, and today our USAR assets will be brought back as well. So in all, we sent over 85. Approximately 50 people will have returned today, but we still have about 30 people up there. And certainly our hearts and minds are with the people of Montecito and Santa Barbara as they go through that. But that concludes my report on emergency activity.
Thank you. Do we have a report by the medical director? Thanks.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chief Terrazas, Dr. Mark Eckstein, EMS Bureau Commander. Since the last Fire Commission meeting, we've had a number of outstanding saves by our members of the department. I often talk about cardiac arrest saves, talk about the chain of survival and how each link needs to be strong for a successful outcome. And we've had a number of notable saves really afflicting people of all ages. People tend to think of cardiac arrest as only afflicting older individuals. December 21st, Engine Rescue 34 had a save of a 17-year-old male in cardiac arrest. On New Year's Day, Engine Rescue 36, a 35-year-old female. On January 6th, Engine 33 Rescue 14 treated a 57-year-old female with a new medication, or at least a new formulary of a medication we carry, different strength of adrenaline or epinephrine that the paramedics now carry only as of the last few months, with a woman presenting in severe anaphylactic shock, and she also will make a full recovery. On the 9th, Engine Rescue 83 went on an initially reported seizure on a 44-year-old male. And one of the things we've really focused in terms of stress with our dispatchers is to recognize the seizure as potential cardiac arrest, which was the case in this particular instance. The dispatcher correctly provided bystander compression-only CPR instructions, and a life of a 44-year-old male was subsequently saved in the process. So some outstanding saves due to the work of our members, including our dispatchers, and enlisting the help of our citizens as Good Samaritan bystanders. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So moving on to presentations.
Good morning, Commissioners, Fire Chief Terrazas, City Attorney Ms. Iniguez, Eric Scott, Fire Captain, Paramedic, and Public Information Officer. This morning we're recognizing a probationary firefighter's attempt to connect with a patient that proved to be life-saving when the man safely surrendered after threatening to jump off a freeway overpass. So the incident took place on January 24th, 2017 on the 101 freeway near Hollywood, which was ultimately completely shut down. And this is really a story about a brand new firefighter that made all the difference in saving a patient's life. Firefighter Kenneth Frazier was off duty. He was actually headed home after he was spending some extra time at a station preparing for an upcoming drill. When he pulled off the freeway, he noticed that a lot of people were gathered around the overpass, and there was a man that was threatening to jump. So without hesitation, Firefighter Frazier stopped his vehicle. He went to speak to the patient, and as 911 calls were made to notify authorities, he calmly spoke with the patient and truly established a rapport with this individual. He really got up close and personal with this gentleman. He was able to relate with him, was able to gather enough information to determine that this individual truly had hit rock bottom. And that's where Firefighter Frazier talked to him about his own struggles and what he went through. And this went on for nearly 2 hours, and was able to talk to him also about how he overcame his own struggles there. And to this extent, then when LAPD officers arrived on scene, they noticed the positive progress that Firefighter Frazier was making and continued to allow him to handle the negotiations throughout the incident. Now, meanwhile, there were 2 air rescue cushions that were being put in place by his fellow firefighters down below on the freeway, and they had no idea that it was one of their own that was making such a difference up above. But Firefighter Frazier successfully connected with the patient, was able to convince him to choose life, and safely brought this individual into LAPD custody for evaluation. So now if we could kindly turn your attention to this short 30-second video.
Firefighter Kenneth Frazier was driving home when he noticed a man on the overpass, so he pulled over and started a conversation. By the time the LAPD arrived, Frazier had a strong rapport with the man, so they let him continue.
At the end of the day, it's my job, it's my duty, and it's an opportunity for me to change someone else's life, and I don't believe that there's a greater calling than that.
Officers placed air cushions on the freeway in case the man attempted suicide. No one knew until it was all over that Frazier is a rookie firefighter.
And also shortly after the incident, firefighter Frazier was quoted to make the following statement. "I am a civil servant. One thing I want to make sure I do all the time is to be able to show compassion and to show that I care. Everyone is a human being first and foremost." And in getting to know firefighter Frazier, his character and his positive attitude is truly outstanding. And so with having just less than 4 months on the job, he did not hesitate when help was needed. It really reflects the dedication and the passion that he has for the Los Angeles Fire Department. And we'd like to briefly read the certificate. "In recognition and sincere gratitude for your heroic courage, diligent efforts, and expedient assistance while off duty, which directly resulted in saving the life of a man during a still alarm jumper incident above the 101 freeway at Hollywood Boulevard on January 24, 2017, the Los Angeles Fire Department commends you for your extraordinary, life-saving efforts to a citizen of the city of Los Angeles. Presented this 16th day of January 2018, Ralph M. Terrazas, Fire Chief."
I'm extremely proud of Kenneth. When you think about the circumstances, 4 months on the job, off duty, after preparing for a drill, and to do what he did in his personal vehicle, get out of his car, and spend the next 2 hours talking somebody down. We hear all the time in interviews about when we're looking for new firefighters how they want to help people. And I can't think of a better example of a person helping somebody else. And for it to be an LAFD firefighter is better yet. So I'm extremely proud of him. And he's at Fire Station 9 right now. And I asked him before the meeting, how's it going? And he says he loves it. They're running over 80 calls a day out of that fire station. And we're doing all we can to support them. And he tells me he loves the pace. And he wants to stay at Fire Station 9 for the rest of his career. Right?
We'll see.
So, Kenneth, I'm very proud of you and happy for you. And I would like to turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, sir. Truly meant what I said in the video when it comes down to changing someone or giving the opportunity. One of the things I was taught growing up in Houston, Texas was the opportunity to change someone's life is very rare. So if ever given the opportunity, do everything that you possibly do to make that difference in that person's life, because you may be either the first or his last person to get the opportunity to make that difference in someone's life. So I want to thank the fire department, fire commission, and everybody else here, and of course the community of Los Angeles for giving me the opportunity to make a difference for the city. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So, moving on to our consent agenda items.
So I just had a question on item 4A.
Yeah, you
before
want
we-
to take it off?
It's sure, yeah. Just
So let's take that off and then just move
okay.
on the other one.
So moving items 4B and C. Move the recommendations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So let's take up item 4A, which is report by the department on the Providence Health Service Partnership to create additional advanced provider response units.
So this seems like I'm super pleased to see this moving forward, and glad to see the expansion. I just want to make sure we are going to see some update on just the data in terms of how they are meeting goals and doing that. Is that coming soon so that we can see just sort of overall how it's working? I'm sure it's great, but I think it's right now. It's currently scheduled for February. Is that going to come in February?
Well, I respectfully would recommend pushing that back a little bit. We've had one advanced provider response unit in the field. We implemented about a year and a half ago, actually 2 years ago now. Since October, our only APRU, which was housed at Fire Station 15, those two members, the EMS advanced provider and the firefighter paramedic, have been detailed to the airport as part of the LAWA EMS enhancement pilot. So certainly happy to provide you metrics, but those are going to be basically about the airport responses. We're very pleased that Providence Health has stepped up to contribute funds to pay for the EMS advanced provider. We're going through the interviewing process through personnel right now. We are hopeful to be able to implement this, our next APRU in and around March 1st. And then from the current cadre of applicants, we anticipate shortly thereafter implementing 2 additional APRUs. These would be placed in the San Fernando Valley. We certainly have very detailed metrics of our APRU. But again, the caveat is the last few months, the only one we have deployed in the field has been detailed to the airport. But again, we have very detailed metrics and could demonstrate its success. And as we scale this to increase the number of APRUs, we'll see a much more of a cumulative effect on the field in terms of linking our EMS super users to care and eliminating their dependence on the 911 system, medically clearing patients with mental health emergencies and transporting these individuals to mental health urgent care facilities instead of emergency departments, and also transporting public inebriates to the sobering center. The metrics we have to date on the APRU have been very, very robust. And we're very excited about scaling and increase the number of APRUs, particularly in the San Fernando Valley, because the types of patients that these resources serve are only going up in number. And as we all know, these types of patients result in a disproportionate number of hours of wall time and ties up our scarce emergency resources, particularly paramedics.
So just to be clear, we're not staffing the positions we currently have open right now. The APR. So the one that was at 15 has been detailed. So that means that one's unstaffed. So how are we going to staff all our positions?
The rate limiting factor has been the ability to hire the EMS advanced provider. It's a new civil service classification. We've personnel has received 26 applicants. So as we hire these individuals, we're going to go ahead and restaff AP 15, and then one that's that's funded by Cedars, and these 2 additional ones that are funded by Providence in the Valley, and anticipate another one downtown with a promise of funding from California Hospital Dignity Health, and also an additional one from Kaiser. So we anticipate having about 6 in the field this fiscal year.
Okay, yeah. If we're getting, if we have partnerships, I want to make sure that we're holding up our end and we're actually staffing our side of it. So, okay, sorry. It was a surprise to me that we didn't have the. I didn't realize we had moved AP 15 to the airport, and that was since unstaffed.
Yeah, again, the rate limiting factor is ability to recruit and process and hire EMS advanced providers. So we're in the process of doing that now. We anticipate these individuals will be selected and hired in the next 30 days or so. And we're very enthusiastic about go ahead and implementing these new resources and putting AP 15 back in service in addition to the two in the valley that are being partially funded by Providence.
So just to be clear, because it's before us because it's a donation from the foundation of actually from donations from Providence Healthcare. It's going to create a partnership with us. And we've actually seen a few of the contracts that have come before us from Kaiser and from other partners. But we didn't realize that those weren't actually deployed yet, or that we didn't have the, because we thought we had one APRU and that we had several others. So what we're hearing is that they're not going to be staffed until March.
That'd be my best guess, given the length of time it takes to hire and process and orient new employees. That's correct.
Okay. And by then we'll have, because I think the goal was to have one in each geographic district, right? So in March we'll have that, or no?
No, the goal is ultimately to have one in each battalion. And again, to be clear, this public-private partnership, obviously the value is half of the costs are being incurred by our partners in the healthcare community. They're paying for the salary of the EMS advanced provider. And we've had tremendous interest amongst our firefighter paramedics to serve as the partners, and they create a very robust team. But again, we have the funding in place, and we're just hiring qualified EMS advanced providers to fulfill the mission.
If I could add to that, the delay has been in the establishment of the civil service classification. The first APRU position was a AP or NP supervisor, I believe. But you can't hire the remaining number of APs under that classification. You actually need a new one. So Dr. Exting has been very persistent in working with the city personnel department to create this new classification. It's just been finalized, and we have 26 applicants. So I've asked him to try to expedite. Our target right now is March 1st. And our intent is to pull from that number of 26 candidates to start staffing the various APRUs that we have agreements with Cedars and Kaiser and California and Providence. So by the end of the fiscal year, we believe we'll have as many as 6 APRUs up and running.
And we already have done the logistics. We have the ambulances ready to go. We've interviewed members who are interested. So we have a list of firefighter paramedics who want to work on these resources. Once the EMS APs are hired and trained, we'll be ready to go.
Does the donating entity have anything to do with the placement of the services?
Yes, ma'am. Obviously, the entities that donate would prefer these resources be servicing the communities where those hospitals are located.
Oh, okay.
So if I could just ask you, just keep us surprised, because again, it was just a surprise to me that the airport was a detail and not an addition. I thought that civil service classification was approved in the fall, but you're saying it was just approved?
Well, civil service classification was approved, and then it had to go through all the steps for the salary being set by the CAO. We had personnel had to advertise positions.
Okay, so it's happening.
It's the typical process to hire new employees.
Service process.
And it's slow. Okay, so if you could just keep us updated, so we know that we're actually honoring the agreements here and staffing the positions that we're taking the donations for.
Right,
it would be good for us to know, so that because otherwise we're out there saying, "Oh yeah, it's great, everything's happening, and we're hiring people," and it's not.
And to be clear, AP 15 was fully funded by the city. The one-year pilot was funded by a number of resources, including the Innovation Fund.
Mm-hmm.
It's now funded by the city, and the LAWA EMS enhancement pilot was determined to take priority for a 6-month pilot, which will be concluding in, I believe, 60 days. And then we'll be able to send those members back to their previous assignment at 15s.
But the airport will be funded to go forward, right?
We hope so. We have a meeting scheduled next week with leadership from LAWA.
Uh-huh.
The metrics from the LAWA EMS enhancement program are also very compelling. And I'm very optimistic based on feedback from leadership at LAWA that will continue the program. So we're going to meet next week to go over the metrics, so there'll be no interruption in service, so LAWA could budget to have the complement of these are cycle teams supported by the APRU at the airport, which is called MedCart 51.
So maybe in lieu of an overall APRU report, you could let us know what's going on with the airport since that pilot period's coming to an end.
Be happy to.
And then, okay, yeah, thanks.
Just another quick question, but you did do the 1-year pilot, right, for the MPRU?
Yes, ma'am.
So you do have data for that?
Yeah, we have a year and a half of data before the members were detailed to the airport. So I'd be happy to present that in any format you like. We have very, very detailed metrics.
So maybe we can do that, because I think that's going to be different than what you get from the airport, I assume.
Sure,
And
be happy
it's
to.
going to be more similar to what they're going to be when they're actually deployed in the bureaus. So I think we should do that. We should do, just whatever you have for the 1 year.
Yeah, the metrics would go up till the second week in October. Be happy to provide those.
That'd be great. Thank you.
I agree with the commissioner. I really believe that when we have a pilot, we need to have a report when it moves to the next step, because I'm listening and hearing, because I remember my question before, once the pilot is over, will we go through the normal hiring process? And I'm happy to hear that that's moving ahead. My concern when you said that the funding is tied to where services are placed, what do we do about South LA? Is that you're taking that into consideration somehow, moving into that area?
Well, we have a
hospitals to fund.
Certainly, we have a verbal commitment from Dignity Health, which owns California Hospital. That's the trauma center that serves the northern half of South LA. They, matter of fact, the majority of our penetrating trauma patients now we transport to California Hospital. So they'll be serving a good portion of that community. Our sober unit, which launched in the middle of November, their service area goes all the way down to Fire Station 64, which is the south end of Battalion 13, which covers South LA. At this point, we're reaching out to different hospitals to try to solicit further donations, and we're more than happy to staff additional APRUs by anyone who's willing to donate the funds.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we consider the whole city and that no part of the city is left out.
If I can add into that, our strategy was to partner with a hospital that had a mutual benefit by treating patients in the field, because they don't want to, their emergency rooms are overcrowded right now because of the flu. So if we can treat and release on scene, our resources can more quickly become available for the next call, and then the hospital emergency rooms become less crowded. Now that's going to cover a large percentage of the city, but those metrics, I believe, will be very compelling for us to go for general funding of all the other areas of the city that don't have a major hospital in it. The ultimate goal is one of these units, APRU per battalion. We have 14 battalions. So if everything works out right, we'll be halfway there by the end of this fiscal year.
And also, just to add to that, Commissioner, when we launched our first APRU, formerly known as an NPRU, because we recognized South LA was probably the community and most in need in terms of underserved for healthcare, we strategically placed a unit at Fire Station 64, which is where they were for the majority of their pilot.
Mm-hmm. I remember that when we went there for that opening. I just wanted to keep it on the top of the table that there are areas that we do not want to be left out. And I really appreciate the work you're doing, because I think these services are very valuable. And we need to alleviate the overcrowding and the wall time in those hospitals, because I hear that from the paramedics all the time. And I appreciate the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, I think the board report needs to be changed. Under recommendations, the board would be asked to approve the report, transmit to the mayor and city council for the city council's approval or acceptance of the donation.
Okay, so that the board approve the report and transmit to the mayor and city council for approval.
For the city council's acceptance of the donation.
Approval and acceptance.
Because that entity would accept.
Of the donation. Okay, so do I have a motion?
Okay, move to adopt the recommendations as amended.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the report. So moving on to the regular agenda items. 5A is the report by the independent assessor on the review of Los Angeles Fire Department's emergency medical service complaint investigation. Investigations closed since first quarter 2017.
Good morning.
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 Sue Stengel, Independent Assessor.
Number 6.
You have for your consideration a review of fire department investigations and adjudications from EMS complaints which were closed during the first quarter of 2017. My office assessed the quality of the investigation and the adjudication, identified trends, and made recommendations to enhance the manner in which the LAFD handles complaints of misconduct. I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Well,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
oh, no.
No, there was a lot in this report. I'm deeply concerned about the fact that there were deficiencies in every single report that you pulled, and it was the 10 that were closed for the quarter, right?
Correct.
Is this, do you know what, is it a staffing issue? Is it a capacity issue? That why the interviews weren't done, or what is your assessment of that? I mean, I know you had recommendations. You had recommendations that weren't adhered to and adopted. They were adopted by us, but not in practice. So do you know, what is your assessment of why that happened?
We had asked the department to give the commission an overall strategy for improving investigations and for ensuring that they are complete and thorough, and the department has yet to do that. So I do not have an overall sense of why the investigations are not thorough and complete.
Okay.
Let me respond to that. We've had discussions with the PSD commander. The Chief Gutierrez has been assigned there for approximately, 6 to 8 months or so. And he's part of our regular meetings with the independent assessor. Now, what we've identified is a need for training, continual training. I do think we have the appropriate skill set. We need to reinforce the recommendations that Ms. Stengel identifies through continual follow-up and adherence. So Chief Everett is working with Chief Gutierrez, and I will be also closely monitoring as well.
So my questions have to do with, because I don't have a sense of how many, because you gave us 10 examples, and I couldn't tell if they were like all 10 EMS complaints that were closed in this quarter, or if this was the sampling of the ones that were available. And so that's my first question. I have other questions about that.
They were all 10 EMS complaints that were closed in the first quarter of 2017.
So basically there were only 10 that were closed in this quarter.
That's correct.
So I'm wondering if if EMS complaints are sort of unusual for PSD, and if what they're usually dealing with is different, so that maybe like these are kind of outliers because they don't have, they're focusing on other kinds of cases. And then because there's a lot of inconsistencies in how they deal with these. So what is the percentage of EMS cases versus other cases that PSD deals with?
I don't have those numbers right now. Our next report will have the statistics for quarters 2 through 4 of 2017. In our last report, we presented the numbers, and I apologize, I don't have them in front of me. I can get them for you. Our last report did include the numbers for first quarter 2017. I cannot remember the percentage of EMS cases off the top of my head. Our next report is going to look at the rest of the year, so we'll be able to present those, but I can get those to you for first quarter pretty easily.
Okay. So do you want to go?
If I recall correctly, we looked at 92 closed cases from 2017 first quarter. So this would represent approximately 10%
Right.
of the cases.
Okay. So then I had a hard time looking at all 10 of these because there were similarities and some of the deficiencies, but there also, I didn't really understand what the policy was that some of these were, looking at necessarily. So, you had some situations where members disregarded what the patient was saying. So or maybe they seem to discourage them from going to the hospital. And I have an idea of what some of the policies are, but I kind of wish that they had been in here so that we know kind of what the investigator was supposed to be focusing on and what, do you know what I mean?
That was one of the issues that we identified, in that the department is not identifying the policies that are that should be considered as part of the investigation. What are the policies that are being identified in the complaint? Are the members following the policies or not? Are they violating the policies? In our opinion, that should be part of the investigation.
So they should be identified, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I have some other questions, but I'll let you go. So, for example, just some of the policies that I didn't understand, like some of them had the EPCR was filled out before, some of them they weren't filled out until later, and some of them they weren't filled out until it sounds like the person had made a complaint, in which case I don't think you should be able to fill out the EPCR at that point. Is that the case?
So again, what we identified is that the department did not identify any policies at all in any of these cases, and whether or not the members followed the policies, whether it was a medical procedure, whether it was a procedure related to how the EPCR should be completed, whether it was a medical protocol, whether it was the department's procedure or policy, whether it's a Department of Health Services policy or procedure, whether it's any kind of state policy. None of that is being identified as part of the investigation, and therefore the department is not identifying whether a member adhered to that policy or procedure, or whether the member did not adhere to that policy or procedure, and whether there was a violation or not. And in our opinion, that should all be part of the investigation.
So we adopted recommendations from the last report, right?
Correct.
And they were not implemented?
Not as far as complete and thorough investigations.
That's what I'm saying. So why was that?
If I can suggest that we have the members of PSD, the commander, provide an update and detailed and specific to each one of these recommendations at a subsequent commission meeting. Because right now we could give you generalities. I'd want to hear the specifics.
So if just the way I see this is, Commissioner Barr, is you're, I think, rightly asking questions of what it's hard to see what's going on with the investigation. I think what you're highlighting is there's an overall there continues to be issues with the quality of the investigations and with follow through on board policy. This is not the first time we've had an issue with follow through on board policy. Not least of which is a request for a follow up on an audit from last April that hasn't come through. There has to be, I would request a higher level of engagement from your office to make sure that the follow through happens. Just asking the PSD staff to stand up there and tell us why they haven't followed through, I think at this point it's a day late and a dollar short. This board makes policy and then it doesn't get acted upon, which is kind of undermines the whole point of what we're doing here. So I see this report as as highly problematic, not just from the standpoint of the individual cases, which are problematic in and of themselves, but of the fact that we have set policy here. We have asked for more robust investigations. It's not just training. Training actually is only half of it. People can be trained, but if there's no follow through on what the training says, then it becomes irrelevant. So I don't know how many times we have to say this is what we want to happen, and then have a report come back and say it didn't matter what you wanted, it didn't happen anyway.
Well, what did the report, because we did get a report back. The way these work is the independent assessor brings a report to us, and then there is a report back from the department responding to that report, usually like a month later. And so I forget what the report back said about that. Like, did the department say they were gonna, that they set, because usually they set a timetable for compliance. Do you remember? No.
Usually 90 days, within 90 days, 60 days.
I just know that the department has not come back to the commission yet with a comprehensive strategy for addressing the lack of thorough and complete investigations.
It's Chief Everett.
Ma'am, just to clarify, so today was going to be a report back on the first audit. However, with the independent assessor's current audit coming on board, that report was pulled in favor of responding to both audits in a future meeting.
Okay.
So that's why you don't have the response back today from the previous audit. Just to clarify that.
But I think we're talking about something from last April 2017 about implementing. There's actually two things called out from the past in here from nearly a year ago. I don't think that's what was supposed to come today.
There was a couple of reports that were bumped today as well that I previously spoke to the commission president about.
Okay.
So, but to answer your question about the audit response, the response back on the original on the last audit was supposed to come back, and then knowing that the independent assessor was bringing this audit in, probably going to have a combined response back on those two audits because many of the issues that, like you mentioned, are the same.
Okay. So then the reason they haven't been implemented is that we haven't had a response back and we don't have a timetable yet.
My understanding is that many of the recommendations from the first audit have been implemented. You won't see a result of that. There's always a time lag when you deal with, when you have an audit of PSD cases or PSD policies and procedures, the resulting positive benefits of those changes will not surface until the following year at least because of the case, because as the investigations go through, by the time you're auditing them, the cases that you're looking at in 2017 quarter one occurred in 2016, probably quarter two. Yeah. And so there's a lag time involved. So that's one, and again, like the chief said, I'm speculating, but that's from my experience in that office. My experience would show me that lag time is built in. It just takes that long to get back the results.
I get that. I think this commission has worked really hard to try to make common sense adjustments to the discipline process, like bringing in, the settlement process and education-based discipline and all those things for the benefit of the department and for the members. But that's the success of that stuff is contingent upon high-quality investigations, so that the public and this commission has confidence that we're honoring what we say we're going to do. All I'm asking for is a higher level of attention paid to implementation of the policies that this commission passes, so that we have confidence that discipline is being handled fairly, effectively, and with detail.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think too, again, it's there's the field cases and the PSD cases, as you know. And I think that some of the steps that are being made at PSD are right now to shore up a lot of the field cases, which is where a lot of our some of our deficiencies have been found. That's a tougher task than directing the PSD office on the higher level cases. but nonetheless, your point is well taken, and so we'll bring those report back.
Why does it take so long to investigate cases?
Because it's. I mean,
How does it take so long, ma'am?
Yeah.
It's supposed to be thorough, so.
'Cause
So-
if you investigate 2016 and 2017,
Because they have a lot of cases.
So there's a lot of factors involved with the length and duration of time of investigation. You have scheduling issues with subject members and witness members that take time to schedule. And through our negotiations with our union partners, we have there's built-in time frames that are involved to provide subject notification, interview notification, and actually conducting the interviews. They are thorough investigations with multiple interviews. And then the time, again, goes back to scheduling for adjudication and for perhaps pre-disciplinary hearings if there's going to be a punitive result to that case. It takes time. There's a 1-year statute that's in the Firefighter Bill of Rights and in the Charter. So, you know, that we don't want to get to that point. We'd like to be a lot faster than that, but they do take time.
by the time you adjudicate anything, does anybody remember whatever happened?
Oftentimes, the other issue is when you have members on platoon duty, not everybody's working every day. So if a member's on platoon duty and they're on duty 10 to 15 days a month, it's hard to schedule sometimes that member to come in for an interview during their work schedule. So we have to work around a lot of the scheduling issues along with that.
And also for like witnesses, especially if it's not the complainant, like we have no way of compelling them to participate.
Correct. If you have a private citizen that's not returning calls or not wanting to be scheduled for an interview, that does cause a time delay as well.
I mean, we can't subpoena them or anything.
Correct.
They just don't call you back. They don't call you back.
Correct.
So there's a lot of those pieces that I kind of wish we would kind of flesh out a little bit more, because there's good reason why some people just, aren't interviewed, because you can't reach them.
Correct.
You can't
and
compel them.
Right. And in those circumstances, I agree with the independent assessor. Those reasons need to be documented and demonstrated on why that didn't occur, if in fact it's not in the report. But normally that would occur where we document why we weren't able to interview.
So when's the report back?
Well, there's several. So on this audit, it probably won't be for a couple meetings because we're incorporating this audit with the last. And then there's
like 30 days?
2 other reports that are coming back as well.
Like a month? You said a couple meetings?
So on an audit response, we usually do 60 to 90 days. So we'll get it on the calendar, and I can let you know.
I think it's important to put a finer point on it. Like, this audit isn't talking about the length. I mean, the recommendations aren't about the length of time for the investigation. It's about basic practice, advising members of their rights. I mean, that's something we have to do. As you agreed with, justifying the adjudication, talking about the policies, not recording interviews. These are existing policies that are not being followed. So I'm not sure what the report back is on there other than to say we'll do it. But I just want to be clear about what the IA is saying here, which is that there's an issue with the following of existing policy. That's all.
And I think all of this is for the benefit of the members, because there's a lot of this that, I mean, you could look at these, all of these investigations, all 10 of them, and see why some of them were not sustained. It makes sense if you could fill out the pieces that are missing, but the missing pieces should be in here. And if they're missing, then, it's hard to justify. So it's for the members' benefit. Most of these were not sustained, and there's probably good reason for it. But it's just the paperwork is just not complete.
Right. That's what we're trying to shore up in those report backs, and or in the investigative reports. There's a team of 20 some odd professional investigators at PSD that have been doing investigations for their careers. And then we have close to 3,000 members in the field with their supervisors being charged to do investigations as well. So the challenge is to have those investigative reports come back in a similar fashion from the field, which we've taken some steps to in having some of our investigators implanted in each of the Bureau offices to assist in that training model with some of our supervisors. And it's showing some results, some good results, and getting the field cases turned around. So we're still working on that, but it'll be part of the report back. I mean, that's a piece of it, but...
Can I add to that? It was the same problem when we created PSD in 2008. We found that the vast majority of our field investigations needed significant review. Now, what we did then was to prioritize the serious cases to PSD and to let the lower level cases be left with the field supervisors. I think more often than not, the quick answer for this is that they did not document why they didn't do something. And that goes to the Madam President's comment that there may be a good reason, it's just not in the file. The independent assessor does her audit, she bases her opinion based on what's in the file. So we need to do a better job of documenting why we didn't do something or why we did something. And I think that that'll show up in a later audit, like was previously said by Chief Everett.
And just I don't want to blame the field. PSD investigators often have to, the completed files is a good example. There's some work we have to do internally as well on those high-level cases that remain in the PSD office. So it's the investigative process, both in the field and in the PSD office, that we're trying to work on.
Okay, move to adopt the recommendations for item 5A.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, thank you. So moving on to (5C), which is the verbal report by the department on the quarterly bureau status report of Valley Bureau.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chief Terrazas, Council Isela, Deputy Chief Trevor Richmond, Operations Valley Bureau Commander. Today I'm going to go over 2017 for Operations Valley Bureau. I'm going to try to move through it fairly quickly. Please stop me if you would like me to elaborate on anything. Once we get... Okay, so first slide is our OVB mission statement. And I won't read it for you, but what I will comment on is every officer in Operation Valley Bureau gets this statement on almost every piece of OVB correspondence. And the reason I do that is I tell them, and my expectation for them is this acts as a filter in your decision-making process. So whenever you're faced with a complex decision, I ask them to read this. And it's funny how immediately apparent the decision is made once you've read this statement. So we try to include it on everything that we do in OVB. So here's the team, 10 people, and I really have to make a statement here. None of what you're going to see over the next several minutes could have ever happened without each member of this team. My Assistant Bureau Commander, Chief John Drake, was unfortunately not able to be here today. He is right now, as we speak, sitting in front of 3 USC professors doing a defense on his doctoral dissertation. It was not a date he could change. So his apologies expressed from me to you for not being here today. So give you some context of Operations Valley Bureau. We are the largest bureau of the 4 bureaus. 1.9 million residents, 33 neighborhood councils. We also have 7 council districts, 17 chambers of commerce. If we were a city by ourselves, we would be in the top 10 largest cities in the United States, somewhere around the size of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just the San Fernando Valley. 204 square miles. We also provide contracts for fire and EMS service with the Ventura County, the Bell Canyon area, the city of San Fernando. And we also have operating plans with the federal government through the United States Forest Service, LA County, which is a contract agency with the state, and then local with Ventura County. So we touch all levels of government in Operations Valley Bureau. So what I'd like to do over the next several minutes is give you a lay of the land. I'd like to discuss the 2015 through 2017 strategic plan and our adherence with that. I'd like to look at operational efficiencies. Not everything I'm going to report today is going to be good. There's going to be some areas of improvement, but I think that's necessary to look at all aspects of how we can improve our performance. We're going to discuss some significant incidents that occurred in the Valley Bureau over the last year, and then I'll finish today by going over future goals and objectives going into 2018. So for the purpose of brevity, I took 2 goals out of the strategic plan, Goal 1 and Goal 6. 90% of the goals that we were assigned fell into those 2 areas, and I'm going to discuss those. So one of the ones that I'm especially proud of, what we were able to reproduce is a Bureau operational assessment exercise. This was every member in Operations Valley Bureau went through a assessment exercise of performance, everything from basic and fundamental operations all the way up to complex multi-company operations. Of particular note here is we also added a company-based EMS scenario, which my recollection from previous what we used to refer to as division evaluations, EMS was never a component of that. We added it in our operational exercise. A company would come in to an EMS call. We had our EMS educator provide a level of scrutiny over the company's performance and then have an AAR immediately following the conclusion of the call. It was very well accepted by the companies, and the critique offered by the EMS educator was extremely beneficial. We've also performed multi-agency exercises for the Foothill Mutual Threat Zone. That's where we had the Creek and the Latuna fires. Those are with our partners in the United States Forest Service and LA County Fire. We also do multi-agency exercises with Ventura County Fire Department in the Santa Susana Mutual Threat Zone. You can see from the slide the number of members that were trained there. I'm also especially proud we actually did a lot of training with LAPD this last year. And in fact, the brush fire evacuation training that we did almost 2 months to the day right before Latuna Canyon brush fire broke out. And I am convinced that training that we did with them was key in our success in getting people evacuated during the Latuna fire and the Creek fires. We've had multi-agency active shooter exercises with Kaiser Panorama, Cal State Northridge. We also did active shooter training with LAPD. We also evacuated 10 high-rise buildings, and I have to be very specific here because we worked with the Fire Prevention Bureau, and I have to give them credit, but we actually evacuated everybody out of those buildings. So there were some not very happy people, but we were able to do it. We saw some weaknesses in our operation. We were able to shore those up. A lot of members of the LAFD participated in that training. And it was a great opportunity for the fire department and the people that reside in those buildings. I want to highlight our collaborative partnership in the Fire Chiefs Collaborative Partnership with MySafe LA. A couple notable events over the last year. We were able to install approximately 754 smoke alarms through either a safe event or a scheduled canvassing event. Also, we were able to provide CPR training in the high schools, and you'll see there the number of high schools that we did CPR training for, to the total of 3,179 students trained in the Valley in CPR and automatic external defibrillation. So very proud of that. We participated in the East and West Valley Emergency Preparedness Fairs through the various council districts. Typically, we always had a speaking role there or a table set up to educate the communities. This one I'm especially proud of. This is our first annual pet adoption event that I did with Council District 5 and Councilmember Koretz at Fire Station 83. This event was a huge success. We adopted a lot of pets, cats, dogs, even a turtle. They actually brought a turtle. I couldn't believe it. But the only bad thing about this event was the ride home with my 2 kids and the crocodile tears because I wouldn't take the puppy home that they fell in love with. So it was a very good event, and we're planning to do another one again this year at a different fire station. So there's our social media metrics, just the real down and dirty number of followers. I don't have relative as to 2016. All I can tell you is that we've improved the number of followers over the last year from the previous year. So we're moving in the right direction. Valley View newsletter. Some of you get the Valley View newsletter. I know Commissioner Woods Gray, you always comment on the Valley View newsletter. We do 6 publications, a biannual publication. Most of it's educational, trying to educate the community on fire safety and how to keep their homes safe. Our Valley Public Safety Advisory Committee, we had 4 meetings last year. Those are the topics that we discussed. Very interesting insights from the community. Evolution of EMS first responders. We got some really good information that I passed along to Dr. Eckstein on some of the things that we can do better in our relationships with the hospitals as first responders. Emergency preparedness, and we've worked with Red Cross on volunteer management. One of the questions I had for Jarrett Barrios, he's the CEO of Red Cross, and actually we had a meeting together, was the management of spontaneous volunteers and how that often tends to be a huge struggle for us in a catastrophic event. So we pulled together a meeting, Red Cross, MySafe LA, EMD, myself, and the personnel department from the city of Los Angeles. And we got all on the same page. So I'm very confident moving forward that we're going to be able to do what we need to do with spontaneous volunteers in the Valley. And then you can see the number of council office collaborations that we did with the various council offices in the Valley Bureau. So what I'd like to look at now really quickly is how efficient are we operationally? And so we're going to look at fire stat data. I'm going to look at CTS complaints, IOD injuries, fire prevention, and training hours. Training hours on the first page I'm especially proud of. If you look at the difference between what we were able to accomplish in 2016 to 2017, we essentially doubled our amount of training hours, which translates into money back to the department, which also doubled as well. So I'm very proud of that, and we're keeping an aggressive position on training hours and getting those documented properly. So what we saw in OVB in general is noticeable improvement in the battalion chief ownership of their battalions. We were able to get all our battalions filled now in Operations Valley Bureau, and it's really starting to show. We're pursuing this new platform, this Power BI, in lieu of the Palantir platform. So we're learning that, but everything's looking really good right now. And overall, our metrics improved across the board. And I just want to spend a little time showing you what analysis our management analyst, Crystal Chacon, did for us. And Crystal's here with us right here. Thanks, Crystal. So what you're looking at here, and it's hard, I know it's hard to read, but this is how the slide used to present at FireStat meetings. What I'd like you to pay attention to, what you're looking at is day and night time, turnout times for EMS calls. And if you look down at the very bottom, and you can see the average times for the city in 2016 and for the Valley in 2016. It should be bolded down there. So what you can see is essentially we were about the same as the city was on average for EMS turnouts day relative to night. Turning to the next slide, what you're going to see in 2017 is our improvement. What you'll see is that the city overall improved, as did OVB, to the tune of about, I believe it was 7.5 seconds overall in EMS turnout reduction time. So what we're doing out there, I think, is working. I think we still have a long way to go, but bringing the message every time to FireStat and emphasizing the importance of getting out of quarters quickly is starting to show and pay off. So, okay.
Do you want to save questions to the end, or
no, sir? You can. Yes.
So I think the turnaround time stuff is really obviously it's a result of hard work and improvement. A question I've got is: are you also tracking operational response time in a composite way? And also, I'm curious what you're seeing with travel time.
Yeah, court times. Yes, we do track that as well. I didn't include it here because travel times for us in the Valley Bureau tend to be unusually long because the stations are quite far apart. And really, where I can make the improvement is in the station and getting people out of quarters quicker. But we have looked at court times as an overall measurement, but not for this particular analysis. I didn't include it.
On travel times, have you noticed any changes in travel time?
No significant changes in travel time that we've seen. There are some parts of the Northeast Valley that it couldn't take as long as 12 minutes going emergency to get to a call, and that's just normal. But no differences that we were aware of.
Oh, from year to year.
From year to year. Okay, so here, this is just another breakdown of, and I won't bother to go into this in any detail, and you can look at it. But it's a breakdown among the shifts in in Valley Bureau and how they compare to the city shifts, and just another way to look at the data in comparison to 2016. Here's for fire and other calls. We had about an 8-second average decrease in turnout time for fire calls, and you can look at the measurement there. So let's talk about complaint tracking. Overall, we look pretty good compared to 2016. You can see from the bar graphs there, we had decrease in the number of complaints. So overall, we're looking fairly good there. But the next slide was where we need to see some improvement in Valley Bureau. The way to read this slide is, although we've had a reduction in service complaints, those are indicated in the blue, pretty significant from 2016. We've had an increase in the number of personnel complaints. Those would be complaints inside the fire station. So we have a couple hypotheses on why that might be happening. We haven't had the opportunity to do a deep drill down on what we think is going on there, but obviously it's alarming to me, and it's going to be something that we're going to look at very closely in this next year to find out why we've seen that increase of personnel complaints. Okay, going on to the next one, IOD. So here's another area of improvement that we need to look at. We had an 18% increase from 2016 to 2017 in IOD injuries. I've had an opportunity to look a little bit at the data on this one because this is especially concerning to me because of the cost associated with IOD injuries to the city. One particular hypothesis that I have that I need to run to ground is the demographic of the people that are being injured on duty tends to be our younger members. And I don't know why that's the case. It may just be coincidence. I don't know, but it's not anything I want to speculate on right now. But it may be a possible hypothesis that training in getting more aggressive with safety training for our younger members that are coming out of the drill tower. I don't know yet, but we're going to be looking really, really hard at that. I do have a success story here, though, however. We did get some information about a particular fire station that had a number of burn injuries on a particular shift to a particular body part over a particular number of fires, which was concerning to me. So we addressed that, and that issue has gone completely away. So we have a success story with IOD injuries. Command officers meetings. One of the things that we try to do, and I know my bureau commanders from the other bureaus represented here today will we always invite EMS Bureau, Fire Prevention Bureau, MySafe LA to our bureau commanders meetings. We do those once monthly. Matter of fact, we're doing one this afternoon. Fire Prevention Bureau is going to be there today to talk about homeless encampments today at our bureau, our BC's meeting. Year in review, Latuna Fire. I won't read all the data here. You're already aware of what happened in Latuna Fire. I'm especially proud of is 0 civilian injuries. And then when you look at the Creek Fire, 0 civilian injuries. Although we did lose a lot of homes, I was especially surprised that we did not injure more firefighters or injure civilians. And you can see that top picture there, the kind of wind that was on that fire and how quickly that fire moved through the city and into homes. I'm shocked that we were able to do that. It was pretty amazing. And so let's talk about going forward. Right now, I know the department's in the process of developing the next strategic plan. We're looking at 5 goals here in Operations Valley Bureau that we'll be looking at over the next 3 years. Although we have not developed or explored the tactics of each of these objectives, we have identified what we'd like to focus on. And I'll go through these relatively quickly. Please stop me if you have any questions on these. So we're going to be continuing to work with across the bureaus, bridge those gaps between EMS Bureau, Fire Prevention Bureau, Professional Standards Division. We try to have them at our meetings, like I've stated before. The improve EMS delivery with a focus on patient care, improve our interaction with our EMS educator, our OVB nurse educator in the Valley. It's been especially helpful. She comes to all our BC's meetings. I always have her on the agenda. She always has something very good to say and educate our people on. Continue to work with MySafe LA. We've got a couple goals that I'm working with Dave Barrett on that I'm really excited about for the next year. My goal is to get at least 4,000 to 5,000 more high school kids trained in CPR. We're going to expand the SAFE program with canvassing events with MySafe LA, and then working with the Fire Prevention Bureau on the six-pack residential issue that we have in the Valley that I would expect is probably more predominant in the Valley than it is elsewhere in the city. So six-pack residential program is homes that have been converted into nursing homes. So they're single-family homes that typically house up to 6 patients. And what we've seen, at least in the Valley, are people that have a number of these. So they go and they buy all these homes, and they put these people in these homes, and they forget to get a business permit, which would include smoke alarms and things like that. So these are the things that we're working with the Fire Prevention Bureau to identify these areas, and then get them the proper inspections that they need and the proper fire protection equipment that they need. But they're popping up daily throughout, and they're very hard to find. Yes.
I imagine that also influences call load significantly.
Yeah, I mean, these people are typically elderly. Most of them are non-ambulatory and in a bedroom, in a bed. And it does. I don't know specifically the call load increases relative to these types of residents. That would be a good data metric to look at. But obviously, I think it would, yes.
I know the skilled nursing facilities in general represents a particular pain point for us as a department, particularly in the Valley.
Yes.
I know that's been an ongoing request from the council office, which I guess is held up with the city attorney. But I would imagine this would go part and parcel with that, and perhaps would even be a greater load because you may have less skill actually in the support.
We have a really great success story here because we had discussed the six-pack residential program at one of our BC's meetings. BC took it to the captain's meetings. 2 weeks later, fire company's out on a call, finds one of these residents. They had 30 people jammed into one of these 3-bedroom homes.
And these are unlicensed?
And some are licensed and some are not.
Okay.
Some are licensed. But this was obviously an incredible fire life safety hazard. We got Fire Prevention Bureau over there right away. We worked very closely with Inspector Pellegrini, who's our fire prevention inspector in Valley Bureau, and we were able to get this place closed down, at least right-sized. They did have permits, but not for the number of people that they had. People sleeping on air mattresses in the kitchen. It was just horrible. It really was. So. And then improving our data metrics. Again, like I had mentioned before, I want to look at our IOD. I want to look at our PSD complaints and why are we getting an increase in complaints inside the fire stations. I want to look for those common themes and then develop strategies to solve those issues. And then lastly, and embrace that a healthy, safe, and productive work environment. And then advanced technologies and community resiliency. We'll keep working with our elected offices. We've done a lot of really good work with CD7. Councilmember Rodriguez has been outstanding with our town hall meetings preceding the rains for the Latuna fire. And then that's it. That's all I've got. Any questions?
Sounds like a lot of great work's going on in the Valley. So congratulations on all the progress you've made for this year. I'm curious, when you talk about increasing BC ownership, that's really intriguing to me. How are you? Can you talk a little bit more about how you're going about that, and beyond just filling seats, if you will? What else you're seeing from that?
So it starts with the Fire Stat program. I think the Fire Stat program has been an excellent opportunity for our battalion chiefs to really get an understanding of what it means to own your battalion. When we put their metrics up on the board and we hold them accountable for those, there's a sense of ownership. And Our last fire stat meeting, I had one particular battalion chief come up and provide an analysis of his battalion that just blew me out of the water. I mean, it was a demographic breakdown of every member in his battalion. He had a hypothesis on why this might be happening. He was going to run it to ground. To me, that's a really good example of ownership. And I always stress with our battalion chiefs, and mostly at the executive level of the department, the ability to be adaptable to organizational change. I think if you're adaptable, you're more likely to own what you supervise. It's when you become rigid, you tend to discount it and not have a sense of ownership over it. So we emphasize organizational adaptability, knowing your job, being proficient at your job. But to answer your question, FireStat has been the biggest piece of ownership for us.
So I just want to commend you because you guys had a really hard year, like 2 really big historic fires in Sylmar, and just amazing work and no fatalities. And I thought that was the most extraordinary. I mean, and with a lot of help from the rest of the department, of course, but, with your leadership.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'd also like to commend the department, that particular bureau, because it was quite clear when there was a second fire, and I can't remember which the fire was, but it was after the Bel Air, fire there. But the way they attacked the fire was so strategic. You could see it even in our homes as we watched it. They really went in there in force and put that fire out right away, and that was really commendable. And I was really excited to also see articles in the LA Times talking about the strategies and the strategic plans for fighting fires. I thought that was really great. And a lot of that had to do with them observing your firefighters and what you're doing in your area. And again, I thank you for the newsletter because I'm able to actually share it because it comes online. Then I send it out to other people who I'm hoping in the Valley who probably end up joining. So, and they do say thank you for the information.
It's Commissioner, it's interesting you say that. I Googled our newsletter, Valley View, and I was fascinated to see how far-reaching it was. I mean, there was a number of websites that I would click on, and there it was. And I didn't even know, I wasn't even familiar with that website. But from things like what you stated, people forwarded on. It was amazing.
Right, it's good. It's a good newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No motion on it? No, I don't think so. So that is item 5B or 5C, 5C, because we didn't have 5B.
What about 5B?
Yeah, exactly. It's 5B. It was 5B. Yeah, it was withdrawn. So yeah. So moving on to public comments, we have 4. So 2 minutes, and our first one's going to be Scott Lassar from LA Fire Department. So once he gets to the podium, 2 minutes. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for this time this morning. Chief, I'd like to apologize for getting injured last year. Trust me, it was no fun for me either. My name is Scott Lazar. I'm a firefighter paramedic at Fire Station 86 out in the Valley. I've lived in the city for over 32 years. I've owned a home in this city for 10 years. I've been a proud firefighter paramedic for the city for 15 years. To say that I'm vested is an understatement. And in all those years, I've seen a lot of change, most of it for the better, I'm proud to say. But currently, our fire department is facing many, many challenges. And in the past, members might have shown up to a commission meeting like this or gone to the station and complained and told somebody that they were doing it wrong and that they needed to fix it. But I'm not here to do that today. It's quite the opposite. What I'm here to do today is tell you that there's going to be no fire and brimstone. The sky is not, in fact, falling. But maybe, just maybe, together with the fire chief, together with Dr. Eckstein, we can do things even better than we're doing them now. We have a lot of buy-in from members in the field who just want to do their job as good as they possibly can. Effectively, we want to change the culture of the fire department. Because of the size of our department and being in a major city, we are in a position of leadership. It is undeniable, and it is unavoidable. And one of the best ways that we can lead our profession is through the area of EMS delivery. Currently, our biggest challenge in this city on a daily basis. Our department is trying many revolutionary ideas with our finite resources to be progressive and to serve our citizens better. And as a member on the front lines, I could sit here and nitpick. Be easy, you know? But this is evolutionary change. This is something our department's never done before. But evolution takes time. And unfortunately, right now, due to our ever-increasing population, our ever-increasing call load, we need more help transporting on a daily basis. In short, you'll see Mr. Firefighter Paramedic Quigley. He's got some numbers that are very important to this cause. I hope you'll pay great attention to those. And I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, so then our second speaker is Mr. Ryan Quigley from LAFD. Again. Great, so we have 2 minutes for Mr. Quigley also.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Quigley. I'm a firefighter paramedic for Los Angeles Fire Department for the past 15 years. I'm currently stationed at Fire Station 96 in Chatsworth. I'm here today to share my research for you and hear the needs from a field personnel perspective. Bottom line is what it comes down to. We need more support staff in the form of EMT, also known as 800 RAs. It might be unusual for a paramedic asking for more EMT resources, but through my research, I could easily state and prove that addition of 800 RAs will assist and support everyone. More 800s will split the calls between other 800s. More 800s would keep engines and trucks available for needed fires, high hazard calls, and high level medical incidents. More 800s would keep ALS RAs available for ALS level incidents. Ultimately, the end result would be that the public benefits as a whole because the most appropriate resource is available for their immediate need. Now, let me touch on one of the points I just mentioned, why 800 RAs would keep ALS RAs available. This is a core focus point of my research, and I have compiled the data and, more importantly, seen it played out in the field myself. If an 800 is unavailable in ALS RA response, the ALS RA has no choice but to complete care and transfer the BLS patient, remove the ALS resource from the district for an extended period of time, sometimes hours, as in a case last week with RE57 waiting 5 hours at the ER with a BLS patient. This is unacceptable. A perfect scenario is having ALS RA and 800 respond together on unknown or questionable ALS calls, which according to Metro is a majority of 70%. This allows ALS assessment in either BLS or ALS transport, and according to data, 80% transport BLS. This perfect scenario requires multiple new 800s. What our department absolutely needs is 20 plus 800s, but adding 5 more 800s is a good start with keeping our current V staff allotment. Support from the bottom makes EMS system stronger.
Thank you. Great. And we have a third speaker. It's Mr. Steve Edelman, also from LAFD, Fire Station 5.
Thank you. Steve Edelman, firefighter paramedic, Fire Station 5. Fire Commissioners, ranking leadership, thank you for the opportunity to speak. As I begin, please appreciate my bias. I've worked for the last 17 years with the previous two speakers, and the future of the fire department looks good behind their initiative and their leadership today. I've been asked to come and wrap up the statements and kind of impact with what they just said so there's no mistake. We would like added to the budget for 2018 and 19, 5 additional BLS ambulances staffed and the funding for that. As firefighter speaker Scott Lazar just explained, our purpose for being here is a collaborative effort. We want to be able to work with leadership even at the ground level, and we want to do it in proactive, value-driven solutions. The second speaker that you saw, Mr. Ryan Quigley, he just brought the solutions that are data-oriented, and we want to emphasize to look into that data so that we can return to what we're asking for at this time is an additional 5 BLS ambulances in the current budget coming up. And we just want to say that we're really proud and thankful for Ryan Quigley for his effort in gathering that data. With that being said, the communities and the services that they're asking for us, they're getting more demanding, and we're having a hard time making all these calls, and we need help. I want to also emphasize that we think one of the biggest solutions to this is leadership. John Maxwell, a foremost educator in leadership development, basically said that leadership is influence, and it's not a positionship. And so with that in mind, as a non-ranking member of the Los Angeles Fire Department and closest to the problems, we think that we offer some great solutions. And from this point forward, we're basically recommending that we would like added to the current budget of 2018 and 19, 5 additional BLS ambulances. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the coordination of your message, too. That worked out well with the 2 minutes. So our last
I'm sorry, quickly. I want to thank these members. I salute your courage. It's a hard thing to get up and do that. I really appreciate it.
We have our last speaker is Adam Van Gerpen, from Director of UFLAC.
Members of the commission, thank you for giving me these 2 minutes. Adam Van Gerpen, I'm a UFLAC director from the UFLAC board. I think everything out here today has been very positive. Just want to let the board know that in the last year, since we've had some new leadership of the union, we've formed an EMS committee. At this point, we're working very well with EMS Bureau, Dr. Eckstein, and the Chief Fortman, Chief Zabilski. The fire chief has came to one of our EMS committee meetings. So we now have a vested interest in this, and we're addressing it on a monthly basis. We've also, in order to increase to dissemination of information, we formed a Facebook page where we can share information with our membership, and we can address these EMS issues, and we can sometimes address them right away. And then if we can't answer a question, then we can work with our management affiliates and leaders and try and address some of these issues. So we definitely recognize that there is some budget issues. I know that the budget this is not necessarily the time or the place for that. And our president, Tony Gamboa, has been working with the fire chief and addressing some of those issues. So I think it's good for the I think it's good for the commission to know that our membership has a very vested interest in this. We see what needs to be done, and I think it's great that we are coming up to arenas like this, letting the commission and letting the department know. So I think EMS has never really been a big topic of discussion. Now it's a majority of the topic at almost all of our board UFLAC general membership meetings, and I think everything's moving in the right direction. So I want to just continue the support from UFLAC and working with labor management and Dr. Eckstein, and as we have new ideas, we can bounce them off them and vice versa. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So that's it. We can adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we're adjourned.